ये fictional है obviously, but it feels very real, you know. Think of this as a break from the reality, where the reality might actually be the scariest part, okay? So let me introduce you to The Patient by Jasper Dewitt, and it's about a man who's been locked away for over 20 years, never treated, never touched, because everyone who tries to help him ends up getting mad or even worse, dead. ये कोई रेगुलर नॉवल नहीं है. द पेशेंट एक्चुअली स्टार्टेड एज अ बंच ऑफ अ रेडिट पोस्ट. अ साइकाइट्रिस्ट जिसने अपनी हॉरिफाइंग एक्सपीरियंसेस शेयर की थी ऑनलाइन इन रेडिट आई गेस, और लोगों ने द पोस्ट लिटरली वेंट वायरल, ओके, एंड लेटर समवन कंपाइल्ड दोज पोस्ट, एडिटेड एवरीथिंग एंड turned it into insane horror fiction book. I guess that was Jasper Dewitt. So let me tell you, vibe still feels very disturbingly real, and it's unfiltered and it's very raw. स्टोरी सेट होती है कनेक्टिकट की एक स्टेट रन मेंटल हॉस्पिटल में, ओके, नॉट फैंसी काइंड ऑफ अ हॉस्पिटल, बट इट वाज वेरी ओल्ड, अंडर फंडेड एंड फुल ऑफ क्रीपी. वहाँ एक पेशेंट है जिसके आसपास ज़्यादा टाइम रहने वाले लोग, लाइक डॉक्टर्स, नर्सेस, इवन द गार्ड्स, या तो सुसाइड कर लेते हैं या तो फुल मेंटल ब्रेकडाउन हो जाता है उनका. देयर इज़ नो डायग्नोसिस, नो नेम फॉर हिज कंडीशन, एंड पीपल जस्ट विस्पर दैट हिज इलनेस, मेंटल इलनेस इज़ कंटेजियस. तभी स्टोरी में एंट्री होती है डॉक्टर पार्कर की. ही इज़ young psychiatrist, freshly graduated from Ivy League school. He's super smart, super ambitious, और उसके fiancée Jocelyn, she is doing her PhD. They are a very powerful couple. Seems like a powerful couple. So Parker moves to Connecticut to be with her, and everyone thinks that he will join some top tier fancy hospitals. Okay, but this man, he applies to a government mental hospital. मतलब very low pay, bad condition, staff overworked or overbooked. Not the place that you expect an Ivy League graduate or a doctor to go. But हमारा पार्कर उससे तो अजीब सा fascination होती थी. Alright, so now we have talked about his fascination with the state-run hospitals, right? So well, there's a reason behind it too. It goes way back when he was just 10 years old. When he was little, his mother was admitted to this mental institution, the same kind of place he did eventually choose to work in. लेकिन कुछ तो था उस जगह में, like something about that place was very different and it stayed with him. Parker was 10. His father found his mother in the kitchen late at night, and she had a steak knife in her hand and she was cutting herself, like carving into her arm. And Parker's dad was like,
"Sweetie, what are you doing?"
And she turns around and she said,
"The big insect demon has put the screams of the damned into my ears, and the only way I can get them out is by cutting my skin."
She believed कि वो जो maggots थे, they were all running through her body into her blood, and the only way those maggots will come out was from her vein. So she was carving her arms, cutting her arms, and the blood was splattering everywhere. Yes, and she was immediately sent to the hospital. Now, to make the matters worse, Parker's dad tried to hide the truth from him for a while. For a month, he told him that, your mom went on a girls' trip, that she was very busy with her grandma, this and that. And one day, Parker was like, "Dad, I'm 10 now. मुझे अपनी माँ से मिलना है." और फिर finally his dad has to take him to this state-run hospital. And the moment he stepped inside, everything felt wrong. The hospital looked nasty, smelled nasty, और staffs वैसे लग रहे थे जैसे वो खुद आपको depression दे दे instead of curing your depression. It was, yeah, he said it was that vibe, okay? It was like a place designed to break you instead of healing you. Now Parker walked in with his dad and they were led into a room. And ये जो room था, it was so smelly, it was unbearable, it was like a mix of urine and blood. और वहाँ उसी कोने में उसकी mom बैठी थी, hunched over and bleeding. She looked at him and for a second she recognized him, and then she's like,
"Parker baby, why don't you help mommy? Let me get this damn maggots out of my body."
Yeah, this was the moment that terrified Parker. I mean, he was just 10 years old. Somehow उनकी mom register कर लेती है that his son is getting very scared of her. So वो उनको पार्कर को comfort करना चाहती है, and she starts moving her way. But instead she crawls, telling Parker baby and singing a lullaby to him. Like literally it was very horrible. and as she starts to crawl towards him, singing him a lullaby, thinking that was comforting him, but Parker could only feel pure terror. Like she was singing, but all he felt was disgust and fear. So he ran out of the room and started crying to his dad, and he knew right then and there that he had to help people like his mom, because this was not his mom. This is where Dr. Parker decided he wanted to be a psychiatrist. He thought, I'll help the people like my mother and I'll change things around. But unfortunately, his mother passed away before he could even make a difference in her life, yet the childhood trauma stayed with him forever, guiding him through his career. And that's how Parker ended up working in the place like Connecticut State Hospital. So this hospital, it was ginormous, okay? It had big campus, tall buildings और सब कुछ एकदम बिखरा हुआ. You could just feel that this place was underfunded. मतलब even Parker की सैलरी देखकर तुम ये कह सकते हो कि ये जगह किसी प्राइवेट लग्जरी सैनिटेरियम जैसी नहीं थी. This place was where people land in when their mental, physical or financial health all hit rock bottoms. ये जगह उनके लिए थी जो कहीं नहीं जा सकते थे. Okay. So the first day, Parker walks in with his coat, trying to be all hopeful. Nurses completely overbooked, patients wandering around and screaming from their rooms. और सबसे disturbing चीज़, it looked less like a place of healing and ज़्यादा जैसे asylum होते हैं ना, where there are possessed people or something. कुछ वैसा दिख रहा था. बट पार्कर स्टिल होपफुल. ओके, आईवी लीग ग्रेजुएट्स था भाई. ही थॉट ही कुड फिक्स एवरीबडी. बट एवरी हॉस्पिटल हैज़ one patient, the one who just doesn't make any sense, the one where every seasoned doctor says बस मुझे समझ नहीं आता. In this hospital, that patient was Joe. बट अभी तक पार्कर ने जो को देखा नहीं था, बट ही हैज़ हर्ड द विस्पर्स. और रिसेप्शनिस्ट, नर्सेस, इंटर्न सब उसके बारे में बात करते थे. वो 6 साल का था जब उसे इस हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट किया गया था, और अब 20 साल बाद भी ही वाज स्टिल हियर. नॉट वन डॉक्टर इन ओवर 2 decades could label him. क्योंकि जो का सिम्टम्स it changed constantly. One day he seemed like a sociopath and the next day it was something else. और सबसे terrifying बात, जो डॉक्टर उसके symptoms को finally समझने लगते हैं, वो उसके अंदर झांकने लगता है and they die. Suicide every single time. Now you have got this young, bright, Ivy League graduate doctor, तो उसका एटीट्यूड इज़ फुल ऑन मैं सब ठीक कर दूंगा. इन हिज माइंड ही इज़ लाइक आपका ट्यूशन फ्री होगा सब. बट माइंड वॉज लाइक $100,000 a year. $100,000. बस डिग्री दिखानी है, 2 मिनट का कन्वर्सेशन एंड बूम, जो इज़ फिक्स्ड. यू आर वेलकम ह्यूमैनिटी. एंड गेस वॉट? Now he wanted Joe. He don't want to get paid for treating Joe at all. This case is gonna be interesting. I'm gonna fix Joe. But the first day he gets the idea that it is not gonna be easy. Okay, it is even gonna be hard for him to get to talk to Joe, to him to get Joe on his patient list. Now he is wandering around asking the staffs like, hey, who's Joe? Can I get him on my patients list? सब लोग ऐसे रिएक्ट करते हैं जैसे उसने किसी कर्स्ड नेम ले लिया. And they are like, bro, it's your first day, calm your tits down, he's dangerous, okay? You don't know what you're talking about. And the creepiest part, Joe didn't have a doctor. Everyone in the hospital has assigned a psychiatrist except for the Joe. Now, only people who interacted with him, like orderlies, who go to just clean his room, change his sheet, give him food, and one nurse, Nessie, the one who gave him his medicines, and that's all. No therapy, no group sessions, no walking the halls. He was isolated at the very end of the corridor, like a prisoner. Actually, no, like a wild animal that can even zookeepers are scared of. Now Nessie, she's the head nurse or the queen bee, you can say, working there since like 1970s, और ये हो रहा था early 2000 में. So she's been here for like 30 plus years now. Knows everyone's schedule, mode, bathroom breaks and everything. Or she was the person in charge of Joe's medication. So Parker, our small Harvard baby, vessels his way around the lunchroom and finds Nessie. And there's this one thing everyone knows about Nessie, the tighter her bun, the angrier she is. और आज बाल दोस्त, so he's like, today is gonna be the day. Parker जाता है and he's like, hey Nessie, what are you eating? And Nessie is like, oh my child prodigy, sit down, sit down, sit down. और वो सैलड खा रही थी, like the real nurse core aesthetic. अब Parker goes like, I wanna do something suicidal. Don't tell me you already hate this place. No, I just kinda wanted to talk to Joe. Silence. Nessie literally freezes mid-bite and gives him the deadliest glare. What did you just say? I just wanna talk to Joe, maybe one session. You don't know what you're talking about. You are a goddamn fool. You are an idiot. Calm your tits down, just sit down. You do not know what you're talking about, and you definitely don't want to talk to Joe. She leans over the table and says, You know, kid, every day I go to that room to give him his medicines. It takes about like 30 minutes, and every single time I walk out, I feel like checking myself into this hospital just so I don't have to go back in tomorrow to his room. Don't ever joke about Joe. Don't ever think about going near him. Not ever. And that day, Parker made up two important decisions. One, he's not gonna talk about Joe, especially not from the staff. Two, he's gonna fix Joe. Yeah. Not just help him, now he's gonna fix him, cure him, because now it's too personal for him. Why let the whole staff suffer when you can just cure a patient? Duh, and just move on, you know. Now our Parker, he needed to fix Joe. So he goes to record room and he opens Joe's current chart. It was just one folder. It was paper thin, and so thin it could have been just a discharge summary, not just a file of a man who's been locked in for solidly over 20 years of his life, 20 years in a psychiatric facilities, and his chart is like the thinner than my 11th grade math notebook, like this much. Inside this file, no history, no therapy notes, no psychological evaluation, and no diagnosis. But a list of daily medication, and that's it. As if they weren't documenting a patient, they were just suppressing a secret. So our Parker decides, I'll go to the records room, I'll find his real file, and honestly, that's the most logical thing he's done so far. So he signs up the logbook and walks into this cold archive basements where the air smells like a mildew and forgotten drama. He pulls open a drawer after drawer and scanning for Joe, because remember, there's no last name for Joe, as if the hospital wanted to make him unsearchable. And finally, he finds a file, a dusty, almost untouched one. He opens the file, and when he reads inside, makes him forget every diagnosis he's ever studied. Okay, so according to his file, Joe came to the hospital when he was like 6 years old, admitted for something as simple sounding as for his nightmares. You know, the usual kid stuff, there's the monster under my bed. But for Joe, it wasn't just a monster under his bed, he saw it on the walls, watching him and haunting him every single night. So he said, there's a creature on my wall. It always there when I close my eyes and it tries to kill me. But when my parents come into the room, it disappears. And how he describes it is like it has the creature had the head of a worm, and it had million eyes like a fly, and a combination of spider legs. As if his imagination created a Frankenstein of phobias, a creature made purely from terror. Now the doctors were like, this is normal. A normal hai, childhood hallucination. What is it called? Some phobia of the bugs. I don't even remember the name. Let me check. So it is called entomophobia. It is a persistent and irrational fear of insects that can cause emotional and physical distress. Yes, that's the word. Yes, as the doctor said, it was very normal, right? So they gave him a mild sedatives and calmed parents down and discharged him. End of the story, right? No. So now a few days later, Joe is brought back, but this time there's blood. His arms are covered in deep cuts, self-inflicted. Nobody knew. His parents found him like that, lying in bed, bleeding and terrified. They rushed him to the hospital. He didn't speak, he didn't explain, and this time Joe never went home. Now the next morning, Joe woke up very different, and I don't mean like moody kid different, but utterly horrifyingly wrong. He didn't talk, he didn't cry, he just made sounds like clicks and hiss, like some sorts of insect sound. And when nurses came near, he would attack them, throw chairs, scratch, bite. He became something else, like an animal. No, actually like an insect mimicking a child. So now Joe is assigned to Dr. Thomas. Okay, he was the director of that institute of that time. He's one of the best child psychologists at the state of that time. He manages to get Joe into his office and tries to talk to him, right? And what he writes next in his file is very terrifying. He writes that the child, Joe, shows advanced symptoms of antisocial personality disorder, but the sophistication of his responses are not human, not at his developmental stage. His emotional range, his manipulation, his detachment, they are far beyond a 6-year-old brain capacity. And then Joe speaks out of nowhere. He looks at the doctor in the eye and says, "I don't really like a drunk like you." Dr. Thomas hadn't had a drop of alcohol in 20 years. Nobody at the hospital knew about his past. It wasn't on the files, it wasn't public, and yet Joe knew. The doctor stared at him and says, "Why did you say that?" And Joe was calmly smiling at him and replies, "Why do you think?" So now Mr. Thomas walked out of that room and wrote one final note in Joe's file. "In 20 years of my sobriety, I have never craved alcohol as much I did in this 30 minutes that I spent with this boy." And then he resigned from Joe's case. So remember how Joe's file was giving Parker psychological indigestion? Well, after the horror of the child psychologist's resignation, you did expect some serious documentation after that. Nope. 4 whole years gone, vanished, and between the age of 6 to 10, there were barely any notes. All that was written in bold, shaky handwriting, like the pen itself was scared, was, "Do not assign roommates. Keep him isolated. Only senior staffs may enter this room," and that's it for 4 years. But then budget cuts entered the chat. Now the hospital boardroom probably looked into this and they are like, "Listen, we are broke, okay? We need to make space. This 10-year-old demonic kid can't have the entire room by himself." So they throw Joe with someone else, a 6-year-old boy named Nathan. Now the 6-year-old boy was very tiny, very quiet. He was admitted after surviving this unthinkable repeated abuse by his father. So he had this extreme PTSDs. So it was so severe that he would even flinch at the sound of footsteps. Yeah. And then someone somewhere with the IQ of a houseplant said, "Seems like a match made in heaven. Both the boys are quiet, let's room them together." Spoiler alert, it was match made in hell. So a few months go by, it was going okayish. So one night at 1:30 a.m, screamings. It was so loud screaming that the staff rushed in, and what they found was 10 years old Joe was recreating Nathan's abuse, like the step by step, exactly how his father had done before. Details that has been never shared with Joe, as if Joe sensed Nathan's most intimate pain and used it as a weapon. Now this little boy Nathan's PTSD was doubled. Yeah, it was already extreme, but now it's doubled. After that, Nathan never spoke again, but Joe, he was unfazed. He was almost proud. And then hospital's next idea was, let's put Joe with someone else who can fight back. So they throw a teenage, methodic, paranoid, hallucinating, aggressive teenage kid that will overpower Joe if needed. Like if Joe is, for example, if Joe is harming this man, he can knock it off, right? So next morning, there's no fighting, there's no attack, there's just a window. A broken window, bars bent outward, and the teen has chewed through the leather of restraints and pushed the bar open and jumped to his death. No note, no screams, just silence. And the only person who shared that room was Joe. Now this teenage boy has killed himself because of Joe. And then there was a note in the file to the future directors. Do not assign staff to Joe. Do not place him with others. Do not let nurse grow close. He is an unsolvable case. He has no hope. He must remain here forever. His parents can pay, and even if they stop paying, find a way in your budget, but do not release him. So he started thinking that Joe doesn't just lack empathy, he lacks emotional empathy. He doesn't feel anything for your suffering, but he has this cognitive empathy to a terrifying level. He knows exactly what will hurt you and how to say it, when to strike, and he enjoys watching it land. For example, he likes hurting people where he likes hitting people where it hurts. Yeah, it's almost like he can sense people's mind, and that's not common. That's definitely not supposed to be so well developed at 6 years old. Most of the adults can't even explain what they are feeling, but Joe could dissect your emotions like a surgeon and then leave you bleeding while he watched, if that makes sense. And then Parker went home that night, and all he thinks about is this Joe thing, right? So his fiance is like, hello, do I even exist right now? So he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I've just caught up with this case, it's so unusual, you know. So he went to bed, and for the first time in years, the nightmare came back. He's inside the hospital. The halls echo under his feet, and there is no nurses, no doctors, just him. And he knows the only other person in the building is his mother. She's calling him, and he follows the sound, opens the door, and standing there is not his mother. It's a creature with a rotting flesh and maggots coming out of its mouth, and its skin so pale that creature calls his name and wraps its decaying arms around it. He feels the maggots crawling across his back, and his skin is itching, burning, and then it starts laughing. A deep, echoing, inhuman crackle sound until he jerks awake, sweating and gasping. So this nightmare was quite common for him because he had it since he was a child. So next day he is driving into the hospital and he's hyping himself up, okay? So he's like, okay, here's the plan. I'm gonna talk to Dr. Bruce. I'll be like, look, I promise I fixed Joe. If I fail, you can fire me, simple. And he's rehearsing the whole speech in his head, and as soon as he pulls into this hospital driveway, flashes of camera and siren, police, cars, ambulance. Like he freezes. What the hell is going on? He jumps out of his car and rushes towards the crowd, and nurses, staffs, everyone standing outside, pale-faced and shaken. He pulls through and asks, what happened, guys? What happened? And then he sees it. A body bag being wheeled out of the hospital. And then one nurse answered. Nessie, she was on night shift. Gave everyone their medicines, then she went to the roof and jumped. The last patient she gave medicines was to Joe. And this wasn't just another psych case anymore. Now it was personal to Parker, okay? Now people were dying, and if no one could figure out Joe more, people would die. So he writes a polite little letter to Dr. Bruce. He says, I'd like to take on a few more patients now that Nessie is gone, and just trying to lighten your load. It listed a few random names and then Joe. But minutes later, he gets paged. Come to Dr. Bruce's office immediately. So he walks in all prepped with his speech, but Bruce explodes. You and your goddamn ego. You think because you are Ivy League graduate, you are some sort of savior. You haven't even been here for so long to understand what the hell you are talking about, okay? Don't ever bring Joe to my office again. And then slam. The office door swings open and Dr. Rose walks in. And she looks at Bruce and says, out now. And Bruce hesitates for a second and then he leaves. Dr. Rose sits down, cross her arms, and she says, so you want to be Joe's doctor? Yes, but I didn't talk to him. I thought I was not allowed. Why? You had all of the case, right? So why didn't you just try to talk to him? I don't know. Did someone tell you that? No, but I didn't want to get in trouble, okay? I didn't want to be fired. Did you read his file? No. She narrows her eyes, and if you're gonna lie to me here, we are done. Okay, I read it. Good, so what are your diagnoses? Sociopath, sadistic tendency, maybe psychological progeria, a condition where the brain ages too quickly. This could explain his intelligence, his manipulation, and also possibly shared psychosis. He's so delusional, his madness spreads to others. You hear about those twin cases where they have same hallucinations, they act together without even speaking, right? So Rose is like, no, you're wrong. You haven't read his file. So Parker is like, no, I just told you, right? I read those files. No, I mean, you have not read his full files. She stands up, goes to a locked cabinet in her office and pulls out a thick manila folder. Okay, that file in the records, that's just a summary. I keep the full file here because new doctors, get curious and I don't want them messing with Joe. Now she hands him the file. I was Joe's doctor. After Dr. Thomas, he was assigned to me. I thought, this kid has the night terrors, phobias, classic sociopath, no big deal. And I was the smartest doctor in this place, so it felt like a waste of my time. After a few months, it was going well, and then I tried to overdose myself in my supply closet. Landed up in a private institution. When I came back, Joe had a new doctor. She goes on, the next one disappeared. Cops found him mid-psychotic break and ran at them with a knife. They immediately shot him. The one after that slit her throat in the psych ward. Then we hired a military doctor, strong, no nonsense, experienced with criminally insane people. He lasted about 18 months and then suddenly one sentence resignation. The next day we found him home, bullets to his head. She leans in, deadly calm. So tell me, what do you diagnose someone whose madness seems so contagious? Parker doesn't even speak. Everyone thinks you are smart. You are not the first. We all thought we could fix him, we all paid the pride. But he doesn't break down. Now Dr. Parker is like, I understand, but I want to try. I'll be honest with you, if I can't handle it, I'll just stop. Just give me a chance. Dr. Rose is like, oh, fine, but try not to kill yourself. A few weeks later, it was finally time, his first session with Joe. He walks into the hallway, swipes his ID card for the access and steps into the room. And honestly, he's a little bit disappointed this time after everything he's heard, doctor losing their minds, patient going catatonic, and he was expecting some straight up horror movie setup like scratches on the wall, dried up blood maybe, but nothing. It was clear, quiet. Joe was just sitting at the desk and he looked small, like really small, like 5'6" maybe. Extremely thin, his face was sharp and almost hollow, and his voice was very soft, almost childlike. And doctor thinks, seriously, this is a guy? And Joe turns around and says, you look young. Is that a problem? No, just means you must have done something really bad to end up in my room. No, Joe, I wanted to be here. I wanted to talk to you. Oh, sure, or maybe you just messed up real bad, huh? Oh, wow. So that was playful, mocking, and strangely very self-aware. So this was not what doctor expected at all. So he sits down, Joe leans back and amused. Let me guess. She sent you here, right? Dr. Rose. She always does this. She sends the one she wants to fire. What? Every time she is done with someone, she sends them to my room. They try to fix me and fail. And then she fires them. It's like a game. It's like a ritual. That makes her look good, I guess. I'm her unsolvable case, and while she keeps cycling through doctors, my parents keep pouring into this money, into this hospital. Neat little scam, isn't it? Parker is literally stunned. Like, he says, or maybe I just wanted to help you. Joe smirks. Or maybe you thought you'd be my little savior. He leans in. So, what's your diagnosis, doctor? I was hoping you could help me with that. Joe laughs. How the hell I would know? I'm not the one losing my mind. Everyone around me is. Sometimes I think they are doing it on purpose to trying to make me go mad. This time he sounds serious. His eyes are intense now. You are the doctor. Diagnose me. Go on. Try. Everyone else tried. None of them has succeeded. Ask yourself why. He continues. She's keeping me here, doctor. I was brought in when I was like 6 for some stupid nightmares and I haven't left since. You tell me, is this medical or criminal? And honestly, I don't even know what's in my file, do you? The doctor looks up and asks, what happened to Nathan? Joe's voice drops. Nathan, he was 6 and I was 10. They put me in the same room. He said he couldn't sleep unless I hugged him. He told me exactly what to do and said it's what his dad does every night, so I did it. I didn't know what I was doing, okay? I was just 10. No one had taught me right from wrong that way. And then he started screaming and people thought I was assaulting him, but I didn't understand what was happening. As I said, I was 10. I don't even know what assault meant. For the next 45 minutes, the doctor just talks to Joe and the doctor is stunned. Joe seems normal. Actually, he is more than normal. He is insightful, present and very aware. The fact that he remembered Nathan's name, it's very unusual because the most sociopath he's treated don't remember names, just sensation, pain or the power, not people. And then something else happened during the conversation. A bird flies into the window and drops out of the sight. And Joe gets up, walks over the window, looks out, stares and looks worried. Most of the psychopathic patient the doctor has worked with wouldn't even flinch or some might even laugh. But Joe, he looks devastated. He keeps glancing down and hoping the bird will fly again. And you can't fake that, not when you have been institutionalized your whole life and not without any social feedback on how to mimic empathy. So the doctor finishes the session, leaves the room, and he's not scared. He's just curious and confused. What if Joe is telling the truth? And what if this entire system is built up on the exploitation of a child? And what does that mean for him now that he knows? He tries to shake it off, tells himself maybe Joe is manipulating me, maybe he's just good at playing sane. But still his instincts scream otherwise. He takes his notes that night. If Joe had walked into his office today, like without any history, no files, no stigma, he did diagnose him with a mild depression and agoraphobia. If I'm pronouncing it right, it's the fear of going outside, which makes sense because he's been institutionalized his whole life till now. He was really starting to believe maybe Joe's story actually made sense. क्योंकि जैसे ही वो इंसिडेंट हुआ, डॉक्टर रोज को सडनली हॉस्पिटल का डायरेक्टर बना दिया गया, जस्ट लाइक दैट, नो क्वेश्चंस आस्क्ड. क्या ये सिर्फ कोइंसिडेंस था या फिर डॉक्टर थॉमस और डॉक्टर रोज दोनों मिलके कुछ छुपा रहे थे? The only recording that existed was that one session with Joe जहाँ Joe sounded like a scared little kid. उसके बाद just Dr. Thomas का personal note where he wrote he's the most evil kid ever. और वो केस फाइल डायरेक्टली पास हुआ डॉक्टर रोज को, his favorite student. Then she claimed Joe was a psychotic, that he made her suicidal, and shortly after that, bam, she became the director. Almost like she secured Joe as a long-term funding machine for this hospital. Doctors ने decide किया कि वो Joe को personally मिलते रहेंगे. Over the time, he kept meeting him again and again. Joe was never charming, but he was never violent either. Joe के अंदर एक hopelessness थी, एक थकान. You can't fix me, doctor. It's fine. You'll probably get fired trying, or worse, you'll go crazy figuring out that they are keeping me here even though I'm sane. I don't know what to tell you. And then doctor remembered about Nessie and he got curious and he asked what happened the night Nessie died. Joe का expression completely changed हो गया. He says, I was excited that night. She told me she was gonna help me. Years से वो मेरी medicines handle कर रही थी. No other doctor has spoken to me years. But she said she would talk to the board and tell them I'm improving, right? She will let me join the other patients for a group therapy to prove that I'm adjusting. I'm being seen. She promised and then that happened. And he starts crying. डॉक्टर को क्लियरली समझ आने लगा कि समथिंग वॉज वेरी रॉन्ग विद दैट हॉस्पिटल. मे बी नेसी फाउंड आउट द ट्रूथ, मे बी शी वॉज प्लानिंग टू स्पीक अप, मे बी समवन मेड श्योर शी डिडंट. डॉक्टर पार्कर ने एक प्लान बनाया. मंथ्स तक वो जो से मिलते रहे, ओके, टू ऑब्जर्व हिम, ट्राई टू फाइंड इवन सिंगल रेड फ्लैग, बट देयर वाज नथिंग. ही वाजंट सैडिस्टिक, ही वाजंट मैनिपुलेटिव. नाउ ही इज थिंकिंग कि आई कांट कीप हिम लॉक्ड अप हियर. But if I go public with those notes on the records, he will never be released. So he made a bold plan. In few weeks, he will leave his coat in Joe's room. उस कोट के अंदर एक पॉकेट में की होगा along with a printed map of hospital. जब डॉक्टर पार्कर फायर अलार्म को पुल करेंगे सब पेशेंट इवैक्यूएट होंगे और जो क्वाइटली एग्जिट करेगा, सिंपल. एंड नोबडी वुड सस्पेक्ट एनीथिंग बिकॉज जो was not known to escape. Nobody liked him and nobody expected anything from him. So but still doctor had some doubts. What if he's wrong? So he kept testing Joe. He asked, "What about your parents, Joe? Why don't they come and visit you?" And Joe answers, "The minute they realized that I was broke, they stopped caring. Yeah, they keep me alive, but they don't care. I was not allowed to have pets. I really wanted a cat, but my dad was allergic to this. One day I found a stray cat and she was so sweet. I used to leave a canned tuna in the garden for her. Slowly she started trusting me. फिर एक दिन my dad saw me with her and he just drop kicked the cat into the woods just like that and the cat died. Then my father started beating me in the garden and my mom came not to stop him but just to yell that don't let the neighbors hear. And then his father turned around and pushed her as well and she had a black eye for 2 weeks. But somehow she blamed me for it. उस दिन के बाद तो मुझे ऐसे देखती थी जैसे मैंने उनका फेस तोड़ दिया हो. So no, they don't visit and honestly I don't care anymore. And the cat's name was Fig Bottom. So he finally decides कि he's gonna do it. The great escape. उस दिन he quietly walks into Joe's room and Joe looks up dead plan. He says, "You're crazy, what are you doing?" So Dr. Parker smiles, "I'm gonna pull the fire alarm and you are going to run." He says, "This is dumb, you could lose your license." "I trust you, Joe. You are not the monster they say you are." He pulls him into a tight hug and then turns to leave and slam! A giant staff grabs Parker and slams him into the wall. They literally drag him down the hall. "You are keeping a sane patient here for money. This hospital is corrupt. He's not a danger. You are." And while they are pushing him, he hears something. A laugh. A woman's laugh. It's his mom's laugh from his nightmares. No way. I'm just imagining things. This can't be real. So they drag him into Dr. Rose's office and she's sitting in that office. And also there is an old man. Parker stares, that must be Dr. Thomas, Joe's first doctor. And Rose finally speaks. "What were you thinking, Parker?" He explodes. "I know what you did, okay? You too were his doctor. You are the only ones who survived. You are keeping him here for the funding, for power and some disgusting experiments." Now he's shouting at this point, shaking furious. "If you are trying to silence me, my fiance won't stop digging and you people will be caught." And then they start laughing. The Rose says, "How do you think we knew? What were you planning today?" "Maybe the staff, you asked them to follow me, I guess." "No, Joe told us." Silence. "What? Why would Joe? That makes no sense." She looks down, her voice changes, softer this time. "When I was first assigned to Joe, I was pissed, okay? I thought it was a waste of my time, but slowly he grew on me. I built a treatment plan, hypnotherapy, talk therapy, exposure exercises, and he was thriving. Honestly, I think he saw me as a mother figure, and I saw a wanted little boy. For 4 months, he was perfect. The nurses adored him, I adored him, and I made a plan that if he could care for a cat for a week, we considered easing him into the group therapy. 6 days, perfect. On 7th day, I walked into his room and the cat was dead. It was decapitated, and in the blood on the walls, he wrote, "Nosy Rosie." That's what they used to call me when I was bullied in school. I never told Joe. I broke, I left, I tried to overdose myself. At this point, she's crying, Why did he kill the cat? Why did he do that? Now, at this point, Parker is shaking. What was the name of the cat? Rose says, something Fig something. I think it was Fig Bottom. You're saying he read your mind? Thomas cuts in. That's what we believe. After years of trauma and abuse, when he first came in, we told him that the monster was in his imagination, right? Dr. Parker interrupts. Wait, you're saying that his father abused him? But there is no proof, right? That's a huge accusation. What if it wasn't trauma? What if there's something in the hospital, like a real entity? Fine, you think I'm crazy, right? Let me prove you I'm not. Let me go to Joe's house, let me meet his parents. If I can see any signs of abuse, emotional, physical, or anything, you can fire me. They look at each other thinking. Finally, they agree. The next day, Parker starts driving to the fancy part of the Connecticut, and he's just looking around like, damn, these houses are huge. Now he pulls into this big ass driveway. His mom's already waiting for him. No, dad, she tells him that his father died 10 years ago, and she escorts him into the living room, and oh my god, everywhere, like full on haunting lodge vibes. Moose heads, deers, exotic stuff were hanging in the walls so casually. He was honestly freaked out by looking at that. पर एक तो ना कुछ अलग ही level का था, like bull bows, head, a million creepy eyes. Is this even real? Dr. Parker is just staring with his mouth open, and his mom's like, I know it's awful, right? It was for Joe. We had an artist sketch out this monster Joe saw on the wall, and his dad got it made and said, see Joe, I killed it for you. I killed the monster, and obviously it didn't help. But I just kept it. It reminded me of both of them in the weird ways. She says, ask me anything, I just want to help my little Joe. And Parker asks, when did it all start? We moved into this house when Joe was like 5. I was pregnant with his sister. We gave him his own room. He picked up everything, colors, toys, bed, and his first night he woke up screaming. He said, there's monster in this wall. It's very typical, right? 5-year-old being scared. So we tried making him sleep alone. Didn't work, and then came the nanny. Good at first, but then one day we saw her yelling at the walls, not even the people, just screaming at and nothing. तो हमने उसे fire कर दिया, but things got worse. And the next morning when we came into his room, it was blood everywhere. In his arms were cut, and Joe was in shock. He didn't speak. We admitted him again into that hospital. Can I see his room? So his room was in 4th floor. His room is perfect. No signs of abuse, no infestation. So he is starting to look around the room, and he lifts a carpet corner and he sees a dried blood, and that blood is leading to the monster wall. Okay, the wall that Joe said monsters come from. So he calls his mom and he says, can I open this wall, please? She says, yeah, sure, if it somehow helps to treat my Joe. She brings him an axe, and he just bangs and bangs. Open it up again. And there they found a child's skeleton. It's Joe. If this is Joe, then who the hell is in the hospital? The mom screams, call the police, and Parker runs, races to hospital, and Joe is still there. And now he's smiling, that crooked, eerie smile that his mom passes to him every single nightmare. As he watching his smile, now Parker suddenly got that instinct to check his fiancée. Check on Jocelyn. So he drives home as fast as he can. His heart is racing, and thank God Jocelyn is safe. But then he gets the page. There was a power outrage. The first few floors and of the hospital is flooded, and Joe, he escaped. So weeks pass by, but Parker is not okay. He's constantly looking over his shoulder. हर पल उसे लग रहा था कि कोई उससे देख रहा है पीछे से. Something is watching and something is waiting for him. Everyone says that Joe escaped, but he's not coming back. You are safe. Safety तो तब थी जब हमें यकीन था कि monster stories में होता है, not walking around in the lab coats pretending to be human. And then Joe's mom, she jumps off from Joe's childhood bedroom window. She dies. But there's a twist. उस skeleton की कोई reporting भी नहीं मिली पुलिस को. Nothing, जैसे वो कभी वहाँ पे था ही नहीं. No mentions of bone in the wall, no traces of real Joe. Then Dr. Thomas dies very mysteriously. Heart failure found by his housekeeper, and Dr. Rose vanished. Nobody knows where she is, even if she's alive or not. And then one day Jocelyn gets assaulted outside a library. Then the police called Dr. Parker, and it was just panic and chaos. And that's when he picks up everything and leaves Connecticut. Doesn't say where, वो बस भाग जाता है वहाँ से. Later on they get married, but Jocelyn, she's not the same. She dropped her PhD and she doesn't even leave the house now. And then she announces that she's pregnant, and she don't want her kids to grow up in the world where the things, whatever that was, still exists. But this time it wasn't a crooked smile, it was a real one. And then once the baby was born and the baby was 5 years old, he started to shout, and their child will look up at the wall and whisper, "Daddy, there's a monster here." And this time the story will begin again. Okay, so I kind of made up that ending by myself, because in the original ending it just didn't satisfy me much, because original ending के according जो था, he was a creature at the end, because उसके tentacles निकल आए थे, he had that million eyes, and I was honestly like this was too fantasy for me, I'm not scared anymore. So I decided it would be good if जॉसलिन का बेटा होता या फिर बेटी होती, and then he was like, there's a monster in the wall. That would make more sense and it's more creepy, right? Anyway, so that is it for today, and if you like this episode, I would just say subscribe to it and let me know what are your thoughts in the comments down below. Next episode, it's gonna be a true crime. So that is it for today, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, stay safe and stay healthy.